The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a monument to cooperation and peace. 12 ancient species had governed the galaxy from this place for over 10,000 years. They had ended wars, settled disputes, and brought order to chaos. They believed themselves wise beyond measure. Today, they would make the greatest mistake in galactic history. Admiral Daniel Carter stood at the center of the hall, surrounded by towering alien figures. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few had no solid form at all. They looked down at him from their elevated seats like judges examining a criminal. In many ways, that was exactly what he was to them. "The charges against your species are clear," said High Arbiter Zintha of the Valori. She was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the dim light. Her voice echoed through the chamber like a cold wind. Humanity has been a member of galactic society for only 200 years, yet in that time, you have caused more conflict than any species in recorded history. Daniel kept his face calm, though his heart was pounding. He was 63 years old, a veteran of 3 wars and countless diplomatic missions. He had served humanity his entire life. Now he was watching everything fall apart. "With respect, High Arbiter," he said, "those conflicts were not of our making. We defended ourselves against aggression. We protected our colonies from raiders. We did what any species would do." "You destroyed the Kreth battle fleet in 17 minutes, interrupted Counselor Tevron of the Andari. Her insect-like eyes showed no emotion. 17 minutes. That fleet had dominated their sector for 1,000 years. They attacked our colony world. They killed 40,000 civilians, including children. And you killed 4 million of them in response." Daniel had no answer for that. It was true. When the Kreth attacked New Helsinki, humanity had responded with overwhelming force. The message had been clear: touch our people, and we will end you. It had worked. No one had attacked a human colony since, but the Council did not see strength. They saw a threat. High Arbiter Zintha raised her hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet. "We have studied your species carefully," she said. "You breed faster than any other intelligent race. Your population has grown by 300% since first contact. You adapt to new environments within a single generation. Your technology advances at a rate we cannot predict or control." She paused, and her silver eyes locked onto Daniel's face. "You are not like us, Admiral. You are something else. Something dangerous." "We are survivors," Daniel said. "Our world was harsh. We learned to fight, to adapt, to never give up. These are not crimes." "No," Zintha agreed. "But they are warnings. Today you are allies. But what about tomorrow? What happens when your population exceeds ours? What happens when your fleets outnumber our combined forces? What happens when you decide that you no longer need the Council?" The question hung in the air like poison. Daniel wanted to argue, to promise that humanity would never turn against the galaxy. But he knew it would be useless. The Council had already made their decision. He could see it in their eyes. "The vote has been called," Zintha announced. "All in favor of the proposal to banish humanity from galactic society, activate your signal." 12 lights appeared around the chamber. 12 votes in favor. Not a single voice of opposition. Daniel felt the weight of those lights crushing his chest. 300 years of work, of building relationships, of proving humanity's worth, all of it meant nothing. "The motion passes," Zintha said. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. You will withdraw all colonies beyond your home system within 60 cycles. Your jump gates will be dismantled. A barrier of automated defense platforms will be erected around your territory. Any human vessel that crosses this barrier will be destroyed." "You're imprisoning us," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We are protecting the galaxy," Zintha replied. "From you." Behind Daniel, Captain Lavra Mitchell stood frozen in shock. She was young, only 32, serving as a diplomatic attaché on the mission. She had believed in the Council. She had believed that reason and cooperation could solve any problem. Now she watched that belief crumble to dust. She activated a small recording device hidden in her uniform. Whatever happened next, she wanted history to remember this moment. "High Arbiter," Daniel said, straightening his back and meeting her gaze. "I want you to remember this day. I want you to remember that humanity came to you in peace. We offered friendship. We offered alliance. And you chose fear." Xintha's expression did not change. "Fear has kept this galaxy stable for 10,000 years, Admiral. We will not apologize for it. You will regret it. Perhaps. But we will be alive to feel that regret. Can you say the same about your species?" The guards moved forward to escort the human delegation out of the chamber. Daniel went quietly, but Lavra lingered for a moment. Her eyes sweeping across the council one final time, she thought about her parents back on Earth, about her younger brother who had just joined the colonial service, about all the dreams humanity had carried into the stars. Those dreams were dying today, but something else was being born. Something hard and cold and patient. Lavra Mitchell made a silent promise to herself. She would survive this. Humanity would survive this. And one day, when the galaxy needed them most, they would remember what had been done here. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Daniel spent most of it alone in his quarters, staring at the stars that were being taken from his people. He wrote his resignation letter 7 times before finally sending it. He could not face his government, his people, knowing that he had failed them. Lavra spent the journey differently. She compiled her recordings, her notes, and her observations into a single document. She titled it The Betrayal and transmitted it to every news outlet on Earth. When the Endurance finally reached Earth orbit, the planet was in chaos. Riots had broken out in dozens of cities. The government was struggling to maintain order. People were angry, confused, and afraid, but beneath the chaos something else was happening. Scientists were already working on new technologies. Military planners were designing new strategies. Engineers were drawing up plans for generation. Ships that could explore the prison humanity had been given. The galaxy had tried to break humanity. Instead, they had given them a reason to become stronger than ever before. High Arbiter Xintha had called humanity a virus. She had no idea how right she was. Viruses adapt. Viruses survive. Viruses spread, and viruses always find a way out. The barrier around Sol was beautiful in a terrible way. Thousands of automated platforms formed a sphere around humanity's home system. Their weapons pointed inward like a cage of light. Any ship that approached them would be vaporized in seconds. The message was clear: humanity was never meant to leave. For the first decade, despair gripped the human race. The stars they had reached for were gone. The allies they had trusted had betrayed them. Many believed this was the end of human civilization. They were wrong. Dr. Nathan Cole was 47 years old when the banishment happened. He was a physicist working at a small research facility on Mars, studying energy patterns that most of his colleagues considered a waste of time. The council species had told humanity that zero-point energy was impossible to harvest. Nathan refused to believe them. They said we couldn't travel faster than light, he told his team on the morning of his greatest breakthrough. They said we couldn't terraform planets. They said we couldn't do a lot of things. Maybe they were lying about this too. 3 years later, Nathan Cole stood before the United Human Nations and presented a working zero-point energy generator. It was small, barely the size of a refrigerator, but it produced more power than a nuclear reactor. And it never ran out of fuel. The council species had kept this technology from humanity for 200 years. They had wanted humans dependent on alien energy sources. They had wanted control. Now humanity had power beyond anything they had imagined. The next century saw changes that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. Cities rose on every planet and moon in the Sol system. Mars became green with forests and oceans. Venus was transformed from a hellish wasteland into a tropical paradise. Even the cold moons of Jupiter and Saturn became home to millions of people. But humanity did not stop there. Admiral Ryan Torres was born on a station orbiting Neptune, far from the warmth of the sun. He grew up hearing stories about the stars that had been stolen from his people. He dreamed of taking them back. At 35, he was given command of the first exploration fleet. 50 ships, carrying 10,000 colonists, ventured into the quarantine zone, the barren sector of space that the Council had designated as humanity's prison. The Council believed this region was worthless, empty of resources and life. They were wrong about that too. Torres found dozens of planets that could support human life. He found asteroid fields rich with metals. He found gas giants that could fuel ships for centuries. The quarantine zone was not a prison. It was an opportunity. Over the next 200 years, humanity spread across their cage like wildfire. They built colonies on 100 worlds. They constructed space stations the size of small moons. They created a civilization that rivaled anything in the wider galaxy, and they never forgot what had been done to them. General Ashley Brooks was born on New Providence, a colony world that had been terraformed from a frozen rock into a garden. She grew up in peacetime, but she trained for war. Everyone did. "We don't know when the barrier will fall," her instructors told her. "We don't know if the Council will come to finish what they started, but we will be ready." Ashley excelled in every form of combat. She could fight in zero gravity, in toxic atmospheres, in temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in seconds. She became the youngest officer ever accepted into the Void Rangers, humanity's elite special forces. But Ashley was more than a soldier. She was a strategist, a leader, and a symbol. When she spoke, people listened. "The galaxy thinks we are dead," she told her troops on the day she was promoted to commander. "They think they buried us out here in the dark. They are wrong. We are not dying. We are growing. And one day, we will show them exactly what humanity can do." Meanwhile, on Earth, a different kind of revolution was taking place. Dr. Megan Cole, Nathan's granddaughter, had inherited his genius and his stubbornness. She spent her life working on a single problem: communication. The Council species had faster-than-light communication, but they had never shared the technology with humanity. Messages between human colonies could take years to arrive. Megan changed that. At 62 years old, she activated the first quantum entanglement communicator. It allowed instant communication across any distance using principles that the Council had claimed were impossible. Her first message was sent from Earth to the most distant human colony, a world called Far Haven that was 3,000 light-years away. The message was simple: "We are still here." Far Haven's response arrived less than a second later. "We never doubted it." Humanity was no longer isolated. They were connected, united, and stronger than ever. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Marcus Young was a test pilot, flying experimental ships at the edge of human space. He was 23 years old, reckless, and brilliant. His commanders called him a troublemaker. His friends called him crazy. But nobody denied his skill. During a routine test flight, Marcus discovered something strange. The barrier around human space was not solid. There were gaps, tiny fluctuations in the defense grid that lasted for fractions of a second. A normal ship could never exploit them, but a ship fast enough, with a pilot skilled enough, might be able to slip through. Marcus reported his findings to his superiors. They ordered him to forget what he had seen. He did not forget. Years passed. Marcus rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a captain in the human fleet. But he never stopped studying those gaps. He never stopped planning. By the time 300 years had passed since the banishment, humanity had changed beyond recognition. They had technology that matched or exceeded anything in the wider galaxy. They had a military force of millions, trained and equipped for any threat. They had a population of 50 billion people spread across hundreds of worlds. Most importantly, they had something that the Council had never understood. They had unity. The banishment had forged humanity into a single people. Old divisions of nation, race, and religion had faded into memory. Every human knew the story of the betrayal. Every human shared the same dream of returning to the stars. They did not hate the Council species. Hate was a waste of energy. But they would never forget. And they would never forgive. On the 300th anniversary of the banishment, A ceremony was held on Earth. President Samantha Ellis spoke to a crowd of millions, with billions more watching across human space. Today, we remember what was taken from us, she said. But we also celebrate what we have built. The galaxy tried to destroy us. Instead, they made us stronger. They gave us 300 years to prepare. And now we are ready. She paused, looking up at the night sky where the barrier glowed faintly against the stars. We do not know when the universe will call us back. But when it does, we will answer. And the galaxy will learn what it means to face humanity. The crowd cheered. Ships flew overhead in formation. Fireworks lit up the sky. Somewhere beyond the barrier, the galaxy continued on, unaware of what was coming, but their time was running out. In the darkness between galaxies, something ancient was stirring, something hungry, something that would make the Council wish they had never banished the only species capable of stopping it. Humanity's exile was almost over. Their true test was about to begin. The first warning came from a remote outpost at the edge of Valori space. A young communications officer named Tevelin was monitoring routine transmissions when something strange appeared on her screens. A massive energy signature was approaching from the void between galaxies, from a direction that held nothing but empty darkness. This must be an error, she told her supervisor. There is nothing out there. No stars, no planets, no civilizations. Her supervisor checked the readings himself. His face went pale. Send a message to the homeworld, he said quietly. Tell them something is coming. The message was sent. It was the last transmission the outpost ever made. 3 days later, a swarm of biological ships descended on the station. They were unlike anything in Galactic records, massive creatures of flesh and metal, with weapons that seemed to grow from their bodies like tumors. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed. The outpost was destroyed in minutes. Its crew of 200 became the first victims of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. They would not be the last. High Arbiter. Zintha received the news in her private chambers on the Valori homeworld. She had ruled the Council for over a century, guiding the galaxy through countless crises. But nothing had prepared her for this. Show me, she commanded. The holographic display lit up with images captured before the outpost fell. Zintha watched in silence as the swarm ships tore through the station's defenses like they were made of paper. She saw the creatures inside the ships, twisted things with too many limbs and mouths full of needle teeth. She saw them drag screaming Valori into their vessels, not killing them but taking them alive. What are they? She whispered. Her chief scientist stepped forward. His name was Kental, and he had spent his entire life studying extinct species from across the universe. He had never seen anything like this. They call themselves nothing, he said. They have no name, no culture, no individual identity. They are a hive mind, billions of organisms sharing a single consciousness. Based on the energy signature, they have been traveling through the void for millions of years, consuming everything in their path. How many galaxies? At least 17 that we can confirm. Possibly more. Zintha closed her eyes. 17 galaxies. Trillions upon trillions of lives. Entire civilizations erased from existence. And now this horror had found the Milky Way. Mobilize the fleet, she ordered. All of them. Contact every council species and tell them we are at war. The response was swift. Within weeks, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council had assembled over 10,000 warships representing 12 species. It was the largest military force in galactic history. Commanders spoke confidently of victory. They had ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. No enemy had ever defeated them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first major battle took place in the Drathkan home system. The Drathkan were the Council's greatest warriors, a species of massive reptilian soldiers who had never lost a war. Their battle fleet numbered 3,000 ships, each one bristling with weapons. Admiral Crexton commanded the defense personally. He was 700 years old, a veteran of a dozen campaigns. He watched the swarm approach on his tactical display and felt nothing but contempt. They are animals, he told his officers, beasts without strategy or intelligence. We will crush them. The battle lasted 6 hours. The swarm adapted to everything the Drafkin threw at them. When the council ships used plasma weapons, the swarm grew shields that absorbed the energy. When they switched to kinetic projectiles, the swarm developed armor that deflected the impacts. When the Drafkin tried to retreat, the swarm ships moved faster than anything their sensors had ever recorded. Admiral Crexton died on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet burn around him. His last words were a transmission to the council. They learn. They adapt. Nothing we do affects them for long? May the stars have mercy on us all. The Drafkin home system fell 3 weeks later. 8 billion people were either killed or taken. The swarm moved on, leaving nothing but dead worlds behind, one by one. The great powers of the galaxy crumbled. The Silvari, masters of biotechnology, tried to create a plague that would destroy the swarm from within. The swarm absorbed the plague and used it against them. The Hexon Collective, with their advanced computer systems, attempted to hack the hive mind and turn the creatures against each other. The hive mind was too vast, too alien. It consumed their networks instead. The Consortium, the richest civilization in the galaxy, tried to buy their way to safety. They offered resources, territory, even slaves. The swarm did not understand negotiation. They consumed the Consortium without slowing down. Counselor Tevron of the Andari watched the destruction from the Council's emergency headquarters, a hidden station deep in a nebula. She had served on the Council for 200 years. She had seen crises before. But this was different. We are losing, she said flatly. Our fleets are broken. Our worlds are falling. At the current rate, the galaxy will be consumed within a decade. The other surviving council members sat in silence. Many seats were empty. The representatives of the Drafkin, the Silvari, and the Consortium were dead. Along with their civilizations. Ambassador Karaset of the Valori spoke up. She was young, barely a century old, and she had been appointed only because there was no one else left. There must be something we can do, she said. Some weapon, some strategy, something we have not tried. There is nothing, High Arbiter Zintha replied. Her voice was hollow, defeated. The proud leader who had banished humanity 3 centuries ago was gone. In her place sat an old woman watching her galaxy die. We have tried everything. The swarm is beyond us. Silence fell over the chamber. Outside, the stars continued to go dark as the swarm spread across the galaxy like a cancer dot. Then Tevron spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. There is one thing we have not tried. Everyone looked at her. The humans. The word hung in the air like a curse. For 300 years, humanity had been forgotten, locked away behind their barrier. The Council had told themselves that banishing the humans was necessary, that it was for the good of the galaxy. Now that justification seemed hollow. They are still there, Tevron continued, behind the barrier. We have monitored them occasionally. They have not died out. They have grown. Their technology has advanced beyond what we expected. Their population has increased dramatically. They are dangerous, Zintha said, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, Tevron agreed. They are dangerous. That is exactly why we need them. Kiraset looked uncertain. Would they even help us? After what we did to them? I do not know, Tevron admitted. But I know that without them, we will all die. The swarm will consume this galaxy, and then they will move on to the next. Every living thing will be erased. Is our pride really worth more than existence itself? The vote was called. It was unanimous. Even Zintha raised her hand in favor. A single ship was prepared, carrying a message from the Council to humanity. It approached the barrier and transmitted on all frequencies. People of Earth, this is the Galactic Council. 300 years ago, we banished you from galactic society. We called you dangerous. We called you a threat. We were wrong. A great enemy has come to our galaxy, and we cannot defeat it alone. We lower the barrier. We ask for your help, please. We are begging you. Come back. The barrier flickered and died. For the first time in 3 centuries, the stars beyond Sol were within humanity's reach. The question now was simple. Would humanity answer the call? Or would they let the galaxy burn? Admiral Kevin Drake was on the bridge of the Vigilance when the message arrived. He was 58 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war that might never come. Now it was here. "Admiral," his communications officer said, her voice shaking, "you need to hear this." Drake listened to the Council's message 3 times. Each time, his expression grew harder. These were the same people who had called humanity a virus. The same people who had locked them away like animals. Now they were begging for help. Part of him wanted to laugh. Part of him wanted to scream. Instead, he turned to his crew and gave a single order: "Send this to Earth. The President needs to hear it." President Samantha Ellis received the message in her office at the New Geneva capital. She was 62 years old, a former diplomat who had spent her career studying the Council species from afar. She knew their histories, their cultures, their strengths, and their weaknesses. She had always believed that one day, humanity would return to the galaxy. She had never imagined it would happen like this. Within hours, the United Human Nations was in an uproar. The news spread across every colony, every station, every ship. The council that had banished humanity was dying, and they wanted help. Opinions were divided. Senator Charles Webb led the opposition. He was a tall man with a booming voice and a long memory. His grandfather had been alive during the banishment. He had grown up hearing stories about the betrayal. "They threw us into a cage and left us to die," he told the assembly. "They called us monsters. They said we had no place among civilized species. And now, when their galaxy is burning, they expect us to save them." He slammed his hand on the podium. "I say let them burn. Let them learn what it means to face extinction alone. Let them feel what we felt 300 years ago." His words were met with applause from many in the chamber. The anger was real, the wounds still fresh even after 3 centuries, but others disagreed. Dr. Megan Cole, now 112 years old but still sharp as ever, addressed the assembly with a calm voice. "I understand the anger," she said. "I share it. What was done to us was wrong. But we have to ask ourselves, who do we want to be?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "The council judged us based on their fears. They saw our strength and assumed we were monsters. Are we going to prove them right? Are we going to let billions of innocent people die because of what their governments did?" "They are not our responsibility," Senator Webb interrupted. "No," Dr. Cole agreed. "They are not. But that is exactly the point. Humanity has never only done what we were responsible for. We have always reached beyond ourselves, beyond our borders, beyond our limitations. That is what makes us human." The debate continued for 3 days. Voices were raised. Accusations were made. Old wounds were reopened. In the end, President Ellis made the decision herself. She stood on the steps of the Capitol, facing a crowd of hundreds of thousands. Billions more watched from across human space. Behind her stood the flags of every human colony, united under a single banner. "3 centuries ago, we were cast out," she began. "The galaxy called us dangerous. They called us monsters. They locked us away and hoped we would disappear." Her voice grew stronger. "We did not disappear. We built. We grew. We became something greater than we ever imagined. And now the galaxy needs us." She looked out at the crowd, meeting their eyes one by one. "I know there are those who say we should refuse, who say we owe them nothing. And you are right, we owe them nothing. This is not about debt. This is about choice." She raised her hand, pointing at the sky. "Out there, billions of innocent people are dying. Children who had nothing to do with our banishment. Families who never voted against us. Species who were not even born when we were exiled. If we can save them and choose not to, what does that make us?" The crowd was silent. "The council was wrong about humanity," President Ellis continued. "They saw our strength and assumed it came from hatred, from aggression, from a desire to dominate. They were wrong. Our strength comes from something else. It comes from our refusal to give up, our willingness to fight for what matters, our ability to show mercy even when we have been shown none. She took a deep breath. Today, I am ordering the mobilization of the human fleet. We will cross the barrier. We will enter galactic space. And we will show the universe what humanity truly is. For a moment, there was silence. Then the cheering began. It started small, just a few voices in the crowd. But it grew, spreading like wildfire until the entire plaza was shaking with the sound. Ships flew overhead, their engines roaring. Flags waved in the wind. For the first time in 300 years, humanity was going back to the stars. Admiral Drake received his orders within the hour. The Vigilance would lead the fleet. 4,000 warships. 3 million soldiers, marines, and support personnel. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled. General Ashley Brooks, now 73 years old with silver hair and a body that was more prosthetic than organic, took command of the ground forces. She had spent her entire life training for this moment. "We're really doing this," said Captain Marcus Young, standing beside her on the bridge of the assault carrier Defiance. He had come a long way from the reckless test pilot who had discovered the gaps in the barrier. Now he was one of the most respected officers in the fleet. "Scared?" Ashley asked. Marcus nodded. "Terrified." Ashley smiled. "Good, fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it make you hesitate." The fleet gathered at the edge of the former barrier. Thousands of ships hung in space, their lights forming a constellation of human determination. In front of them, the stars waited, stars that had been forbidden for 3 centuries. "Admiral." Drake's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Drake. For 300 years we have lived in exile. We have built, we have grown, and we have waited. Now the waiting is over." He paused. "The galaxy needs us. The people who cast us out are dying. We could let them fall. No one would blame us. But that is not who we are. We are humanity. We do not abandon the helpless, not even those who abandoned us." His voice grew harder. "But make no mistake, we are not saviors. We are not heroes. We are soldiers. We are going into a war zone against an enemy that has destroyed civilizations older than our species. Many of us will not come back." The channel was silent. Every man and woman in the fleet was listening. "But those who survive," Drake continued, "will be part of something greater than themselves. They will prove that humanity is more than the Council believed. They will write a new chapter in galactic history. And they will never, ever be forgotten." He took a deep breath. "All ships, engage engines. We're going home." The fleet moved as one, crossing the invisible line that had marked the edge of human space for 300 years. Stars that had been nothing but distant lights became destinations. The galaxy opened before them, vast and wounded and waiting. Behind them, the barrier remained dark and silent. Humanity was never coming back to that cage. Ahead lay war, death, and the chance to prove that the Galactic Council had made the worst mistake in history. Humanity was returning, and the swarm would learn to fear them. The war against the swarm lasted 7 years. It began badly. The first human fleet to engage the enemy was a reconnaissance force of 200 ships, led by Captain Tyler Grant. They found the swarm consuming what was left of the Hexan Collective, a civilization of 15 billion people reduced to floating debris and empty worlds. Grant gave the order to attack. The swarm responded with overwhelming force. Within minutes, half of Grant's ships were destroyed. The rest were surrounded, cut off from retreat, facing an enemy that seemed endless. Any other species would have surrendered. Any other species would have accepted the inevitable. Tyler Grant smiled. "All ships, switch to Protocol Omega," he ordered. "Let's show these things what humans do when we're cornered." Protocol Omega was something the Void Rangers had developed during the long exile. It was based on a simple principle. When retreat is impossible, attack harder. Grant's surviving ships dove straight into the heart of the swarm formation. They used their engines as weapons, ramming smaller enemy vessels. They overloaded their reactors and detonated them among clusters of swarm ships. They fought with a fury and recklessness that the swarm had never encountered. When it was over, Grant had lost 160 ships. But he had destroyed over 2,000 swarm vessels. More importantly, he had learned something crucial. The swarm could adapt to technology, but they could not adapt to insanity. The lesson spread across the human fleet. Traditional tactics were abandoned. Commanders were given freedom to improvise, to take risks, to do things that no military manual would ever recommend. General Ashley Brooks turned this philosophy into an art form. She led her Void Rangers in strikes against the swarm's hive, nodes, massive biological structures that coordinated the enemy's movements. Each node was defended by thousands of swarm creatures, but Ashley did not care about odds. War is not about numbers, she told her soldiers. It is about will. The swarm has no will. They have instinct. They have programming. But they do not have the one thing that makes humans unbeatable. What's that, General? Asked a young soldier. Ashley grinned. Stubbornness. Her methods were brutal but effective. In 3 years, she destroyed over 200 hive nodes, crippling the swarm's ability to coordinate their forces. Meanwhile, Dr. Eric Cole, great-grandson of Nathan Cole, was working on a different approach. The swarm was a hive mind, billions of creatures sharing a single consciousness. Eric believed that consciousness could be disrupted. He spent 2 years studying captured swarm specimens, mapping their neural networks, searching for weaknesses. He found one. The swarm's hive mind relied on a specific frequency of bioelectric signals. Disrupt that frequency, and the creatures would lose their coordination. They would become confused, disoriented, and vulnerable. Eric built a device that could generate the disrupting frequency on a massive scale. He called it the silence bomb. The first test was conducted on a swarm fleet attacking the Andari homeworld. When the silence bomb detonated, the effect was immediate. Swarm ships stopped moving. Creatures froze in place. For the first time, the enemy was defenseless. The human fleet destroyed them in minutes. Word spread quickly. The silence bombs were mass-produced and distributed throughout the combined forces. Suddenly, the war changed. Battles that would have been massacres became victories. Worlds that had been written off were saved, but the swarm was not defeated. Not yet. The final battle took place at Nexus Prime, a strategic system at the heart of the galaxy. The swarm had gathered there in massive numbers, over 100,000 ships, plus their queen. The queen was something no one had expected. She was the source of the hive mind, a creature the size of a small moon that had consumed entire civilizations to grow. If she was destroyed, the swarm would die with her. If she survived, she would eventually rebuild and continue her conquest. Everything came down to this. Admiral Kevin Drake commanded the assault. The combined fleet of humans and surviving council species numbered 20,000 ships, outnumbered 5-1. But Drake had something the swarm did not: a plan. We can't beat them in a straight fight, he told his commanders. So we're not going to fight straight. The battle began with a feint. Half the fleet attacked the swarm's left flank, drawing their attention. The other half used the distraction to punch through the center. Heading straight for the queen, the swarm responded, but they were slower than before. The silence bombs had damaged their coordination. They could no longer adapt as quickly as they once had. Captain Tyler Grant led the assault on the queen. His ship, the Fury, was the fastest in the fleet. He pushed it to its limits, dodging through swarm formations, avoiding fire that would have destroyed lesser pilots. "Grunt, what are you doing?" Drake demanded over the comm. "Something stupid," Grant replied cheerfully. "It's a human specialty." He aimed his ship directly at the Queen's central massa vulnerable point that Eric Cole's research had identified. His weapons were already primed. His shields were failing. His crew had evacuated to escape pods. Tyler Grant flew alone toward the heart of the enemy. He smiled as he activated the self-destruct sequence. The explosion was visible from 1,000 miles away. It tore through the Queen's core, triggering a chain reaction that spread across her entire body. She screamed a psychic shriek that was felt by every creature in the swarm, and then she died. Across the galaxy, swarm creatures stopped moving. Without the Queen's consciousness to guide them, they became mindless husks, drifting in space until they starved or were destroyed. The war was over, humanity had won, but the cost was immense. 2 million human soldiers had died. The Vigilance was destroyed, along with half the fleet. Captain Tyler Grant was given a posthumous medal and declared a hero of the galaxy, Admiral Drake, who had transferred command 7 times during the battle as ship after ship was destroyed beneath him, finally accepted that the fighting was done. He looked out at the debris field that had once been the Swarm Queen and felt nothing but exhaustion. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the Council is requesting a meeting." Drake sighed. "Tell them I'm busy. They say it's important." "Everything is important." "Tell them to wait." But the Council could not wait. They had survived because of humanity, and they knew it. The reformed Galactic Council met on a station orbiting the Valori homeworld. The chamber was smaller than the old one. Many species had been wiped out. Their seats now empty memorials. President Samantha Ellis attended in person, accompanied by Admiral Drake, General Brooks, and Dr. Eric Cole. They stood before the surviving council members as equals, not supplicants. Counselor Tevrin spoke first. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, we offer our deepest gratitude. Humanity has saved us. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid." She paused. "We also offer you a place on this council, a permanent seat with full voting rights. You have earned it." The chamber fell silent, waiting for Ellis's response. She smiled politely and shook her head. "Thank you, Counselor." But no, confusion spread across the alien faces. "We did not save you to take a seat at your table," Ellis explained. "We saved you because it was the right thing to do. But we will not be governed by those who once cast us out." She stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. "Instead, we propose something new. An alliance of equals. No species will have the power to banish another. No species will be judged by their potential rather than their actions. Disputes will be settled through diplomacy, not exile." She looked at each council member in turn. "The old galaxy is dead. Let us build a better one." The vote was unanimous. 3 months later, Captain Marcus Young stood on the observation deck of a new space station being constructed over the Valori homeworld. Human engineers worked alongside alien crews, building something that had never existed before. True cooperation between species. An elderly Valori approached him. She walked slowly, leaning on a cane, her silver skin dulled with age. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. Marcus nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I was a child when your people were banished," the Valori said. "I was taught to fear you, to hate you. We were told you would destroy everything if given the chance." Marcus said nothing. He had heard these stories before. "I watched the battle at Nexus Prime," the Valori continued. "I saw your ships flying into the swarm. I saw your soldiers dying to protect worlds that were not their own." She paused, her voice cracking. "I was wrong about you. We were all wrong." She looked up at him with eyes full of tears. "Now, I teach my grandchildren something different. I tell them that when the darkness came, humanity was our light. That you did not have to save us, but you did anyway. That you are the bravest, most stubborn, most compassionate species the galaxy has ever known." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He thought about everyone who had died to reach this moment. Tyler Grant, the soldiers at Nexus Prime, all the men and women who had given everything. "We're just human," he said quietly. "We do what we have to do." The Valori smiled. "That is exactly what makes you extraordinary." She walked away. Leaving Marcus alone with the stars, he looked out at the galaxy that had tried to destroy his people and had been saved by them instead. Ships from a dozen species flew past the station, carrying supplies and workers and hope. Humanity had been called monsters. They had been called a virus. They had been cast out and forgotten. Now they were the galaxy's greatest hero.